So, welcome to this edition of the Clyde and Lomond Heritage, the podcast. I'm Paul Murdoch, and this is probably going to be the second episode of that particular podcast, and we're doing something different today. I've brought Robert Ryan into the studio, and Robert will be here in a moment, and we're going to discuss various topics over the weeks. This time we're going to talk about Henry Bell. So, yeah, enjoy. Because this is basically the second edition of the Clyde and Lomond Heritage, the podcast, basically.
Yeah.
And we're going to try something different. We're going to try me and Robert here. And Robert, this is Robert Ryan, by the way. Robert, introduce yourself. Who are you?
My name is Robert Ryan. I'm from Helensburgh, and I have a great interest in local history. I'm the chairman of Helensburgh Heritage Trust. And also, although I'm retired, I am a director of the Dumbarton Football Club, and also I am a funeral celebrant.
There you are. So that's Robert Ryan for you. And anybody who knew the pet shop in Dumbarton probably would remember Robert from his days in there.
Yeah, until 2013. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I remember it
for
well.
28 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm obviously Paul Murdoch. My qualifications aren't quite as good as Robert's, I don't think, really, for heritage. I've been working for the Clydesiders magazine for quite a while, I think we've done over 80 little 1 minute heritage videos of Western
I've really enjoyed those, yeah.
Western Bartonshire. And there's another site on YouTube called Paul Murdoch Films, and there's more heritage shorts and films on there too. Mm-hmm. So I have a great interest in it, and I produced 4 books, which I'll mention at the end, which are walks through Western Bartonshire where you can look at nature and heritage as you go. So it's got both things, elements in them, I suppose.
Yeah.
So there we are. Today we were going to talk about Henry Bell, who is quite a famous guy from, well, he's not originally from Helensburgh. So, and the thing is, when I met Robert to discuss doing this, I said he's from a place called Torfichens or something like that. Now, how do you say it?
Torfichen,
which is near Linlithgow, I believe.
Yes, in West Lothian.
West Lothian. Yes. So he came, I think, to Helensburgh around 1806. He was born. When was he born again?
1767, I think. Yeah.
So he came here, to Helensburgh area in 1806, I believe, 1805, with his wife at that time, Margaret. And I'm guessing he would have had quite a different accent from the people here.
I would imagine so. The land was purchased. The land where they built the hotel, the Baths Hotel in Helensburgh, I believe, was purchased on the 29th of May 1806. Yeah. And so they built that hotel and built the business up.
And is that still there, the hotel?
The building is still there. It later became the Queen's Hotel,
right,
and is now part of the Queen's Court sheltered housing develement. So you can still see the original building.
I'll put a picture of it up in the podcast when we do the video version.
Yeah,
because I looked at it the other day. It's quite near the auto sort of car sales place, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. And it's at the bottom of Henry Bell Street.
Funnily enough.
Yes.
Okay. So Henry Bell, I'm talking about his early life. I looked into it a wee bit, and it seems that he was a stonemason at one point.
Yes. I believe he came from he came from a line of engineers who had built bridges and such like all over Britain. But a millwright, I think, was his father's occupation. But he was also an engineer.
And he also did a bit of carpentry as well, I think.
That's right. He became a joiner, really. But I think he did a lot of things before he landed in Helensburgh. He was in London for a while.
He was. Studying, sort of making boat models and things like that.
Indeed.
Yeah. So and he I think round about that time, if I'm not, in fact, a bit before it, 1803, I think, he had already drawn up plans for steamships.
Yes.
And had put forward these plans to the government.
Indeed.
And when they got knocked back from the British government, he started putting the plans elsewhere, to other countries. And I know there's a quote, and I think Lord Nelson, I think it was 1803, said, look, we should look at these plans and take them seriously because other countries will if we don't.
Yes, in that respect, Bell did face rejection, and actually, it's a great parallel with another Helensburgh inventor, John Logie Baird.
Right.
John Logie Baird faced doubt, rejection, and he had to have the determination to carry his ideas through, and that's very much the theme of Henry Bell.
Right.
James Watt was the first guy to tell him that he was wasting his time.
Is that right?
Because James Watt, Bell had requested via sources in London, I believe it might even have been the Prime Minister, if they could arrange a meeting with Watt, and Watt was quite dismissive of Bell's idea and of anyone's idea of having a steam engine in a ship or a boat.
Right.
So that's quite an interesting
Did
thing.
they think it was dangerous or something, or maybe going fire?
I just didn't think. I don't know what his objection was, but Bell isn't really the inventor of the steamship. He didn't make the first steamship. There was a Charlotte Dundas, which was in the Forth and Clyde Canal and such like. But I think it was partly due to when shipbuilding did develop. And Denny's shipyard in Dumbarton famously had the Denny tank to use as an experimental.
Was that in the go by that time?
No, much later. But what I'm trying to illustrate is that the Denny tank allowed the shipbuilders to build scale models and see how they would behave. Bell didn't have that luxury.
No.
He was sitting with a design. Okay, if you have an engineering background, you probably know that you're going to need a paddle on each side, right, or you're going to be going round in circles. But he had to, I suppose, imagine his project and then see how that behaved in the open sea.
Okay. But other countries took his plans and used them. I believe, like the Americans.
Yeah.
And
in New York in particular, and in the Hudson.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the Americans used some of his ideas to build steam paddle boats, I guess. And they must. I wonder if they influenced the big steamboats in the Mississippi and stuff like that.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, everything comes from something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody copies something even in innovative things like steamships.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the Bell was sued by some other operators who had, in fact, I think that the inventor of the builder of the Charlotte Dundas, who was William Symington of Wanlock Head, and he sued Bell for a breach of patent.
Is that right?
Yeah, he did.
But I think that's one of Bell's problems. He didn't seem to take out patent on his stuff, and that's. He didn't, because we're skipping ahead a bit, but in later life, before he passed away, he wasn't aware. He was quite a lot of debt.
Well, I think that again chimes in with Baird. Baird was, Baird provided a comfortable background for his family, but he was always on that, way where he had to borrow money to finance his inventions. The interesting thing about the outcome of the legal case with Symington was that Bell filed a counterclaim of libel, and the matter was dropped.
Right.
So Bell's claim obviously was that he had not used the ideas that were used on the Charlotte Dundas, which incidentally had the same top speed as the Comet, 5 miles per hour.
Against the headwind apparently as well.
Yeah.
So it's said that Bell was obviously a bit of a family man, and he'd be quite often out in the back garden with models and things like that and bits of contraptions apparently.
Yes.
And he married his wife Margaret in 1796, I think it was.
Okay.
Before he came to Helensburgh. But then obviously they settled in the Bath Hotel, and we'll talk about Margaret later on because she has quite an impact in Helensburgh herself.
Indeed.
But so Bell, his inventions used elsewhere, and eventually he decides to kind of go ahead and build his first ship himself. Really, well, it's built in Port Glasgow,
Glasgow by John Wood.
Right. Mm-hmm. He oversaw, I would imagine, the the building.
Yeah, and also an important part of that was the guy who made the engines, who was John Robertson.
Right.
And John Robertson told Bell that the engines that he was contemplating using, or the engine, I should say, that he was contemplating using was not powerful enough for the purpose.
Right.
And that subsequently proved to be correct. So, there was a lot of people involved. And there's a great connection to this side of the river, because although John Wood was a shipbuilder in Port Glasgow, and interestingly, not long after he signed the contract with Bell, he died, and it was his sons that took over, John and Charles Wood.
Right.
And Charles Wood eventually had a shipyard at Dunglass, where, as people of our age know, as the Esso works at Bowling.
And also there's a monument to Henry Bell there as well.
There is.
I mean, that's a bit of a slightly annoying part of the world, that you can't really get access to that at the moment.
That's right.
I mean, there's a Dunglass Castle, which I think has some history to it. In fact, I did a YouTube video on it, and the monument with the Clydesiders. But there was quite a history to the castle itself there, which is the old part of the castle, still bits of it remain. And of course, the Henry Bell monument there was the first monument to him to be built. So before 1872 then? Yes.
Because that's when the Helensburgh one was built.
Yes, well, it's 1839.
1839,
the glass
right.
obelisk was constructed. And I think, if I'm right, it was possibly just constructed by, well, they say Edwin Morris or Bell's biographer, or the Clyde trustees.
Okay.
But also I know Robert Napier was involved.
Yes.
He was a great fan of Bell. And also, if he actually, I think did the memorial in Drew Churchyard to Bell.
Well, the memorial in Rue Churchyard is very impressive. It's a stone statue of a man sitting in a chair, and that's Bell. But the interesting thing about Napier is that there's another local connection there, because there was a huge building at Shandon, the Shandon Hydro, which initially had been Napier's house.
Right.
So it was a huge mansion. I mean, this was in the days when... I mean,
there's still some massive ones around sort of Cove.
This one has gone. It started... this massive building just at the back of the Fastlane base, in fact. Right. It was huge, and eventually was one of the largest hotels in Scotland, the Shandon Hydro. And it was there, I think, probably still there in the 1920s, 1930s. Yeah. And then I think it was taken over by the MOD, and then later demolished. Yeah.
I mean, I think getting back onto the Comet in 1811, I think it's when it was constructed, mostly. I think I'm not sure if it did its maiden voyage in 1811, not without passengers on it.
1812 was the maiden voyage.
Right, and that was to the Brumilo.
Was it? Because I have information that it was in the Forth and Clyde Canal, but I could be wrong on that.
Right.
But
researching Henry Bell or anything, actually, you go into different websites
and you find
look at different books,
things.
And there's different things said about different people. History is a bit of a moving feast sometimes. But, but I think that the bit I got was it did its first run from Port Glasgow to Brumilo. I think it was like 21 miles or something like that.
That's right.
And then it came back to Greenock, 24 miles.
Right.
And it did 5 mile an hour against the headwind. And the ship itself, size-wise, was about 30 foot long. So it wasn't a massive ship, so it was... and of course, he then started doing a passenger service in the August of 1812.
1812, yeah.
And that ran, I think, every other day.
It ran... now...
I think
Thursday, the service was Greenock, Helensburgh, Glasgow.
It was,
and it ran one of them ran Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
right.
And the return journey, i.e. Glasgow, Helensburgh, Greenock, would be on the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Right,
and there's an interesting side note to that, because Bell's brother ran I suppose they would have called it a bus service in those days, but obviously a carriage. And I read the description it was quite a rickety carriage, so that would leave Helensburgh. Let me just check that.
I've read that it took somewhat 5 or 6 hours.
It took 6 hours. Here we are. Henry's brother Thomas ran a rickety coach service during the summer only from Glasgow on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and then the coach left Glasgow at 6 a.m, took 6 hours to return to Helensburgh, and that was on a Tuesday, a Thursday and a Saturday.
I wonder if they came through the Vale.
Probably
not. They could go through Dumbarton and through
would that have been worth the risk? The fare, interestingly,
would that have been worth the risk?
Well, I tell you what,
the Vale it did exist to some extent, but it wasn't much about it.
There wasn't much there at the time, I don't suppose, but the fare was actually, I would think, quite expensive. 7 shillings for inside seats and 5 and 6pence for outside, and for anybody not conversant with old money, that's 35 pence single fare to Helensburgh, and then 5 and 6. Well, I'll tell you, I can remember 35 pence being the return to Glasgow from Helensburgh in my lifetime, so that was a fortune.
That would be a fortune back then. I mean, I don't know, 100. We'll do a calculation at some point.
We will do,
and I'll tell you, but that's probably, I don't know, 50 quid or so. I don't know, we'll need to work it out. Equivalent of now.
I think the thing to remember is that Helensburgh at that time was really just or mainly, should I say, weekend homes, many of them architect designed of the Glasgow industrialists and tobacco lords and things like
that's
that.
The thing,
so they were all trying to outdo each other, right? So they would probably 7 and 6 would be nothing to them,
of course.
you know.
And so his brother probably priced it pretty well, actually.
Yeah, he probably did.
Probably did better financially than Henry Bell, perhaps.
Well, at that time, certainly.
So he then did, and we have, in fact, your heritage site, which is Helensburgh Heritage site.
Helensburgh Heritage Trust, yeah.
There's actually a picture of the poster for that passenger service.
That's right.
But it's quite illegible. So what I did was it was a bit naughty and put it through AI. So I've got it all clearly printed. And again, we'll bang that up to show you, the service times and how much it was and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We'll put that probably here. Then I'll go away again. So we've got him. He's now got the passenger service going. But he didn't stop there. He wanted to do more, didn't he?
He was always ambitious, but there was a lot of alterations done to the Comet because...
And the PS Comet, the PS stands for passenger steamboat.
Ship, passenger.
I think it's passenger steamboat.
Is it?
Or is it passenger ship?
We can check.
I think you might be right. Let me just check.
Does Mr. Google know?
We'll just see.
But the point I was going to make was that Robertson had been proved right because... The engines paddle steamer. well, there you go. We're orang. Aye. Well,
a PS paddle steamer Comet.
Aye. Okay. Unless that's somebody with
the popular... That's GlasgowLive.co.uk and also Wikipedia.
Okay.
So
it started out. I do believe it started out with 4 paddles. Right. So 2 on each side, and there was a wheel in the middle, I'm just trying to remember the right name for a serrated wheel.
Like a serrated cog thing?
Aye, a cog, yes. So a cog would turn, and in turn that power would go to the two paddles on each side of the ship.
Yep.
But I think probably they were losing too much power via that and thought, well, we'll try it with 2 paddles.
And I wonder if he worked out
side.
all the angles of the actual blades and things, because I did a little video about the made of the loch.
Yeah.
And they had very precise angles for the paddles and stuff like that, so they had the best propulsion and stuff like that.
Well, again, they would have had the advantage of the likes of the Denny tank or its equivalent, because the Maid of the Loch, I think, entered service in 1952, something like that. But again,
one of many in the Loch,
absolutely. But again, with the logic and the engineering expertise that Bell had, apparently it was based on the malt shovel. The shape of the paddle was to paddle through the that was how it was described, as a spoked wheel of malt shovels.
Okay, interesting. So we've got that going, and you're just going to say that he did adjust the Comet. In fact, he took it ashore and lengthened it.
Yes, indeed.
Because he had ambition to put it on the Firth of Forth at one point.
Yeah, extended the back.
Right.
It was the back. I think it wasn't weighted properly. Yeah.
So, and then when he had it extended, obviously he could go further afield in it, and he went to Oban, I think, in it.
Mm-hmm.
He started running a passenger service to Oban, and I think Fort William as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have taken, I think, again, you maybe can correct us, but I think it took several days to get there.
It would do,
Up the Crinan Canal, perhaps. And
I know he had it at the Crinan Canal,
right,
yes.
Again, we can check some of these things. Or edit them in. So it makes us look better than we really are.
Yeah.
Because I think what we've got to say here is we're just two people that are interested in heritage. We're not. I've got a degree in zoology, so I'm not exactly a trained historian, but I do like to try and uncover things and find out as much as I can.
Sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And even chatting to yourself, I've learned a few things today that I wouldn't have known about, which is good. So I lengthened it, but then it crashed. It was near, I think it's the Craignish place was called.
Yes.
Craignish, I think it was called.
Uh-huh.
And it sank there, but the people on board managed to get ashore. I don't know if there's any passengers, but certainly the crew managed to get ashore.
Yeah.
And nobody lost their life. And in fact, recently they've discovered the wreck. They
have, yeah. And there's a talk in Helensburgh, for anyone that's watching before the date, I think it's the 26th of February.
Oh, okay.
2026, just in case.
Oh, right, okay. Where's that?
It's I think it's at the council offices in Helensburgh.
Okay, and that's a talk on
the Comet and the fact that they found the wreckage.
Okay, and as we speak, there's a new pub called the Comet in Helensburgh as well.
Indeed, right across from a pub called the Henry Bell, and of course there's the pub in Dumbarton by a famous multi-pub agency as well, the same company, and they have the Captain James Lang. James Lang, sorry.
Who, funnily enough, went on to build the second Comet.
Ah, right. I didn't know that, but I know that he had the connection with Charles Wood,
right,
who had worked on the first Comet, and he was one of the guys that had worked out of Dunglass, I believe.
Okay, well, it said that Lang built the Comet, the second Comet, Comet 2, in Dumbarton.
Right.
So it was a launch, but it was actually 80 foot long. So that was nearly 3 times.
And that would have been the time. By that time, I believe the location of the shipyard was known as Castle Green. So I would imagine that would be where Denny's and Macmillan's shipyards were. So
I just want to check a few facts as we go. Obviously, I get this wrong. 1819, the Comet was lengthened. That's what it was, and then I think it was just the year after it sank. But they had another one on the go, basically a year and a bit later. 81 foot by 13 foot, powered again by a single cylinder steam engine, supplied by Duncan MacArthur of Glasgow.
Right.
But that had it ran as a passenger service for a while, but then it came to a very nasty end.
I believe so.
That was in Gourock. And it collided with another paddle steamer called the Ayr, and that was, I think, it actually collided with the Ayr near Gourock on the 21st of October 1825.
And there were casualties.
There were a lot of casualties. There was about 80 odd people on the Comet 2, and only 13 survived. I think it says 73 people lost their lives, but there's a wee in brackets, they're not too sure. Because they never took passenger numbers. They never kept records that much about how many was on, how many wasn't on it.
Apparently had a terrible effect on Bell himself.
I think it did. And there's more to that as well. In that what happened was they found out later on that the Comet didn't have its lights on properly, and the Ayr didn't see it, and they hit each other.
Right.
And the Ayr was damaged, and it had all its passengers on board, maybe a similar number, and it made it back. It turned right around right away and went back to Greenock without trying to rescue any of the struggling passengers from the Comet.
Right.
And back in those days, not many people could swim. It wasn't a common thing to swim.
Yeah, right.
And these people were struggling and going down in the water.
But perhaps the captain's priority was to save his passengers, because he probably didn't know the extent of the damage.
He might be thinking his was going to sink.
So hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Oh, yeah.
But he's probably he's probably saved more lives than he's...
They did. Well, that's the thing. He decided he would get his ship back and save everybody on his ship, despite what was going on elsewhere. And the papers at the time made quite a thing of that. They gave him quite a slagging, to say the least, about that. But it turns out that the captain, Duncan McInnes, I think his name was, who was the captain at the time. Duncan McInnes. He was investigated because they found out that it was his fault in a way because he hadn't proper lighting in the Comet.
Right.
So he was actually, Captain Duncan McInnes was later prosecuted.
There was, it was a high risk game in those days, and even in the following years and the following decades, it was a great sport for the captains of the Clyde steamers to race to a pier, and very often it resulted in a collision, either with the pier or with the other ship. Wow. And really, you can only imagine when the owners got the reports of these collisions in and how much they cost. It was, yes, it was.
There was an attempt to actually salvage the Comet to December 1825 because of weather and things. They couldn't do it, but it was eventually taken to shore on the 21st of July 1826, and it was actually culpable homicide. It wasn't manslaughter. He was charged with culpable homicide and sentenced to 3 months in jail. McInnes was. So quite a sad.
It's not really a long time for culpable homicide. I wouldn't have thought. Maybe the judge took pity on him or something like that. Maybe the circumstances were,
just more of an accident than a.
Yes. Aye. But the great thing about these people in those days, and Bell in particular, and again there's this parallel with Baird. They were pioneers. They had that kind of pioneer frontier spirit. Yeah. We are into something new here. We've discovered this particular thing, and we're going to develop it. And it was their determination,
absolute determination,
that succeeded and won the day. Yeah,
I think just looking at some of the memorials and things, it's quite interesting. We were talking about Rue Cemetery, which still has the statue there.
Yes,
to Bell, but he actually he laid down a gravestone actually for his captain.
Right,
Captain Robert Bain was the Comet skipper, and he passed away in 1829, just a year before Bell did.
Right. And
apparently Bell put the gravestone down for him in the church there.
Yeah.
Of course, so the first memorial really was Dunglass in 1839. Anyway, I think what happens next is you've got the memorial to him in the churchyard at Rue. I think it was 1850s that was put up, but I'll double check it. By Napier himself, and reading about Margaret, his widow, because obviously Henry Bell passed away in 1830.
Yeah.
His widow, I think before he died, was also granted. I think the Clyde trustees granted him £100 a year as well.
Right.
And they continued that after his death to Margaret. And
actually, although the Baths Hotel was sold, Margaret continued to operate the hotel as the manager.
Right.
And she was the de facto owner, I suppose. But someone had taken it over, so her title was the manager, or manageress as it would be in those days.
Just to be aside about Margaret and the fact that she was in the hotel, she actually led what was called a dissenting congregation at the time in the hotel for worship.
Right. Was this the schism in the Church of Scotland?
A wee bit, and I think what happened was the group petitioned in 1843. They gained formal recognition. In 1844, they built the wee kirk, which you can still see in Helensburgh. It's just behind the St Columba, the Tower Cinema.
Right.
It's a wee bit at the back.
Okay.
And then they get more money in because the congregation grew.
So that would have been the St Columba Church Hall, I would imagine.
Yeah, of course it's now the Tower Cinema, but I think it acquired the name St Columba's Church in 1900.
Right.
So it was built before that.
It was something... I just want to mention this in the passing, but something that we might visit at a future date was that there was a very famous... I think it's something like the schism in the Church of Scotland, and Rue was the centre of this because of two competing congregations, if you like.
I might be wrong, but I think Rue Church was financed by Robert Napier as well.
Very probably. It's a beautiful building. There was a church there before, but that was...
So we'll look into the churches and the schism locally, perhaps, at some point. Nice to stir things up a bit.
Yes, I suppose,
Yeah, but so that's interesting. It didn't clear his debts, by the way. He still had debts when he passed away.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, he had early in his career, and to build the Comet, he had mortgaged the. Let me just see. Yeah, in 1810, Henry Bell mortgaged the Baths Hotel for £2,000 to Archibald Newbigging.
Right.
The same day, Bell and Newbigging together mortgaged the hotel to the tutor and curator of the Struthers family for £1,200.
Wow.
So he was not a man who was unfamiliar with borrowing money.
No. And then, of course, you've got the West Clyde Street Monument, erected in, I think, 1872.
1872.
That's the big pink obelisk.
Yes.
And obelisks were quite a Victorian thing.
Yeah. It's quite phallic when you think about it.
Yeah, it is, but it's kind of supposed to represent sort of pointing towards Ra. I mean, it comes from Egyptian. Yeah. So basically, obelisks were pointing a finger at God, I guess.
God, yes.
And they were quite, I'm not saying easy to construct, but they were not like a statue. We had to really do a lot of stuff.
Right,
you could erect them, they could be quite tall, seen from a distance.
Yeah.
And there was quite a kind of fervour about Egyptology and stuff like that in the late Victorian times.
Aye, because there's Cleopatra's Needle, isn't there, from probably about the same time.
Yeah. So there's that. So I say, both are obelisks, one at Dunglass and one obviously in Helensburgh.
And the one at Helensburgh, to be fair, is in excellent condition. You know, when you think of the age of it. I think maybe the lettering could be doing with a wee bit of
There's a wee bit of, I put some pictures up about it. There's a wee bit of moss in the bottom right hand corner, I think.
Sure.
But it's pretty good, really, and good nick. I mean, it's probably made out of marble, I would think, so it's, or granite.
Marble or granite. I was just thinking that.
Pink granite, I would say, but I don't know. We'll look into that.
Yeah. I don't know. Certainly the
more granite in Scotland, wouldn't
I know that the streets in Helensburgh are paved with marble. It's Chinese marble.
Is it?
No, it's granite.
Chinese
granite. Yeah.
Aye. But so no, I think I'm going to say the Helensburgh are paved with gold. You know, but
I think those days are long gone.
Aye. There was a lot of money. I mean, Helensburgh. A lot of rich people lived in Helensburgh.
Yeah,
at that time.
Some of them. As I said earlier, a lot of them didn't actually live there. They had their weekend houses there, their country retreat, if you like.
Like Rothsay and places like that.
Yeah. But the interesting thing here, and I'm sorry to go off the subject, but Craig and Dorn became the terminus for the Clyde steamers, and it was originally going to be Helensburgh, but those and such as those in Helensburgh, the kind of high Hagians who had a lot of influence with the council, said no, we don't want people from Glasgow streaming out onto the
how disgusting would that
be? Yes, indeed,
spewing into Helensburgh.
Yes, but later probably the council would be reflecting on that decision, because in later years, of course, Helensburgh became a resort, and I can remember even in my lifetime
when I was born in Helensburgh, there is a slight how can I put this tactfully there's a kind of slight upper class thing. I mean, it's like even
it still continues, Paul.
Even people from the Vale and different places go, the Helensburgh trains are always a wee bit nicer than the Vale trains, you know?
Well, the thing is, it still continues, because I live in Helensburgh and my neighbourhood watch is a Rolex, and my wheelie bin has AI and alloy wheels. No, okay. Let's. What were we talking about?
I don't know. Helensburgh and how sometimes they had a reputation for being slightly snobby.
Yes. So there was cause to reflect for the Helensburgh businesses and the council in subsequent years, because all these cafes that wanted business, chip shops that were paying rates and wanted the business. And I can remember, the thing I started to tell you was, I can remember. So
is that why they built the Helensburgh Pier then, to actually address
No, Helensburgh Pier was already there.
Okay.
So but mainly the people who came to Helensburgh for a day or came to Helensburgh for a weekend would come in the train.
Right.
And I can remember,
as of 1850.
This is the third time I've tried to tell you this.
Sorry, there you go.
But I can remember as a kid watching the queues literally round the block for the trains, and they had to put on extra trains.
Yeah.
And there was one day in Helensburgh, I've seen the headline, it's a Helensburgh Advertiser, and I think, so that would date it as post 1957, and they said that Helensburgh at the weekend had 30,000 visitors.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
For that time. And I think, obviously the trains, I think, came to Barton 1851 or so.
Yeah.
But the Helensburgh a wee bit later. Not much later, but a wee bit later.
Not much later, but by that time, as I say, Craigengorn Station at one time had 5 platforms. It had Craigengorn Upper with 2 platforms. The lower station had 2 platforms, and then the lower station had a pier, a track that went down to the pier. So there was 5 platforms.
What we should do, Helensburgh Station itself is still a lovely building. You know?
Oh, beautiful.
As the Barton Central. There's parts of the Barton Central underneath now that are not accessible, which is a shame. But there's still stuff behind those bricked up windows in
and
there.
you and I remember being in that building, and it was magnificent.
There's stairs there actually in that part.
There was a John Menzies at the bottom of the stairs.
There was. So maybe we should do a little podcast on some of the local stations.
And the interesting thing is, and taking us back to Henry Bell, you were talking about Helensburgh Pier, and the Helensburgh Pier that we know, in its horrible dilapidated state, I'm afraid, that was not the first pier in Helensburgh. The first pier was quite near the Baths Hotel. Right. So there are pictures of that.
And it was called the Baths Hotel. Why?
Well, there were baths which were run as a business.
Right. Like a spa kind of thing?
Adjacent to the hotel. Well, a spa, I don't know, but I suppose in days when some buildings didn't have baths, I would imagine it would be to go and have a bath.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Here's the interesting thing.
So it wouldn't be like we're a swimming baths?
No, not at all. No. It was the interesting thing about this is that Bell's first association with Robertson was that Robertson built a steam engine, which are a steel. Would engine be the right? Yes, a steam engine which took water from the Clyde into the baths.
Right.
So that was the water that they used. It was salt water.
Okay.
So probably putting if they knew this in those days, salt's a great bactericidal. So probably that was the healthy option was to.
Possible. I did a little piece on the Baths and Clyde Bank, and actually they did have a swimming pool. Like if anybody remembers the Brock Baths,
yes,
Barton, where you had the changing rooms are all around the side, and it still exists. The Baths, so it's a storage facility at the moment.
It does. Yeah,
it's still. But the Baths in Clyde Bank did have another building attached to the baths, the swimming pool, which were purely baths.
Yes.
And people would have their towels and come along and have a bath because they didn't have a bath in their own house.
Well, I don't know if you remember the Victor comic, Paul, but the Victor had a character called the Tough of the Track, Alf Tupper, and he always paid his way in to get a bath somewhere. So presumably he was still suffering from the outside toilet and the communal bath.
Yeah, I can just about remember some outside toilets. Okay, well listen, I think we'll maybe wrap it up as far as Henry Bell's list. Anything else you want to say about Henry Bell?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. I think it can't be emphasised enough that he didn't really get rewarded enough for his innovation and for his his contribution to steam travel.
And also people did actually later credit him with possibly locomotives. Wouldn't it be the same without him either?
Yeah, that's it. Well, really it comes under the umbrella of locomotion, because locomotion is a description of what goes on in a steamship, a paddle steamer. So yes, I think the other thing that I didn't mean to mention though was his later life. He didn't have a lot of good health because I think he'd been standing near a boiler when it had blown up, and that left him lame.
I didn't know that.
So yeah. So that was about the last thing I had to mention, Paul. So.
Well, thanks, Robert. It's been really interesting. Hopefully we'll return again with another interesting podcast. We've got one lined up. Well, maybe we could look at for next time. And we're going to go right back in time. Right back in time to look at Clyde and Lomond. the formation, the geological formation of the area,
yes,
and the first peoples that may have come and settled here. And we're going to dig a bit, literally, maybe, and try and find out a bit more about that for next time. So
it's good. I've thought of a tagline for this podcast.
Oh, right, okay,
not just a river and a loch. There we go. Not just a river and a loch.
Okay.
So I think it's going to work.
We'll have to put that in italics.
Just send the check to the usual address.
Okay. And we will have other guests on as well. Hopefully we're going to have people on like Jeremy Watson, who runs a great site called Spanglefish, and also I think the chairman
Stuart Noble.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah.
We'll get the Lennox Heritage Society involved as well. I think heritage is a thing that should be shared,
Yes.
And hopefully we can all input and learn from it. We'll make mistakes, but hopefully we'll correct them along the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've made a few already. This one.
Asking me along was one.
Well, possibly. No, I don't think so. So I just want to say cheerio, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye.